incredible leadership from guys like John Bozeman, whose staffer is with us today, and G.T. Thompson out of Pennsylvania. So we're going to talk about all of that has been accomplished, but also, we certainly understand and want to understand even more the reality that you guys are facing right now, because this is all about what's next and what do we need to be focusing on next. So we're going to go through what all has been accomplished, and then talk about, and I want to hear from you guys about what is needed, what's going to be the best policies to pursue going forward. So this is our little barnstorm tour. We were just excited about doing this. Congress is on recess this week. Recess is always, that's a horrible term, because it makes you think that they're out like on the play yard doing nothing, right? But they're actually out working. I know that your hometown congressman here, Loren Boebert, who's a friend. We've got to know one another in DC. I think she went down to Charlie Kirk's funeral yesterday. But they're going to be in the district this week. So this is a great time for you as farmers to get in front of your members of Congress who represent you in Washington, D.C. in this very difficult environment that is Washington, D.C., right? Can you all agree it's a tough place? Would anyone really want to be there fighting this out? I hope you're grateful for those who are willing to make the sacrifice to go up there and do the work. It's just a pathological kind of weirdness that some of us have. I have it. I love the work in Washington, D.C., but it's a hard slog, and we gotta fight. So this is our barnstorm tour. You like this? There's Grayson playing fiddle in the back. There's Jimmy playing the bass. I don't really identify as kind of a Polish accordion player, but there we are, and here in Colorado. Hey, y'all can download these slides, and there's a lot of good information in these slides. We have about 30 to go through that have information about kind of all that's coming, all that has been accomplished, all that will be done, the changes to reference prices and what that means for ARC and PLC that we're accomplishing the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Dave, do you love that description? You just say it loud and proud. One Big Beautiful Bill. It's fun to say. Dave. Piper, would you do an impression for us? Thank you, bro. Yeah, we love, so our staff here, I should just take more time to introduce. You all met Jimmy Clark. Jimmy Clark has been a longtime steward of ag policy in Washington, D.C. Grayson Castillo is the newest on our team, so we'd love to embarrass Grayson and put him in awkward situations. And y'all just join in that party. It's a lot of fun. And then Piper Merritt is back here, and Piper is like, she can't be embarrassed. She was a national FFA officer. She's like the best speaker in the room, and is a champ for agriculture. And then Sydney drinking the enormous. Sydney, show how big that coffee is. Is that not it's like a big gulp of coffees. Sydney is our economist, and we kept her up late last night working through some of these numbers. So you can download it there by scanning this. Is that working, Grayson? Okay, good. And we can come back to that. So the first thing, just say, and I want to get through this. We are so proud to get to represent Washington agriculture in Washington, D.C. because we admire what you do, and we think it is foundationally, fundamentally important to the success of our nation. And you hear that reverberating. I tell you what, 25 years ago when I first went to Washington, D.C., you didn't have a lot of people bragging about this kind of idea that we needed to stand by our nation's kind of foundational industries. But now, who does it most of all? Like who gives you more love, voice love? I'm not saying voice love is true love, but who gives you more voice love than anyone? Donald Trump. Right, do it, Piper. Just say, I love the farmers. Yeah, it's kind of over the top, but it fits with what he does, right? And so I have this line, the original American First Industry. We've been kind of singing this song for a lot of years, that it is worthwhile to stand by our nation's productive industry. You guys who take something of very little value, monetary value, right? Sunlight, soil. Soil has a lot of value. We should talk about land prices, but you know what I'm talking about. The rainfall from above, and you produce a crop of new wealth every year. Over $500 billion in new crops every year. $500 billion, and that ripples through the economy. The economists would peg it, Sydney, thank you, at $9.5 trillion contribution to the U.S. economy. That's 18.7% of GDP. That's for the entire kind of agricultural and food industry. That's big, That's 47 million jobs, or $22 million direct. Sorry, 22. Sydney. 22 M direct. Oh, 22 million direct jobs. Right off of agriculture. Thank you, Sydney. You're our first stop. So we're still working through some of the kinks. But all that starts with 1.9 million farms. And let's face it, this is by the USDA's old definition of a farmer. Anyone knows what that is? That's anyone who markets more than $1,000 of agricultural goods in a year. So when you look at the number of farms who market more than $500,000 in goods in a year, so call that a 1,000-acre farmer somewhere, marketing $500,000 in gross. You don't know how many there are in the nation? Anyone? 225,000, you guys. 225,000. And that 225,000 produced 90% of the value of the goods. They also, you'll see the critics of agriculture, EWG, say, well, no, 90% of the farm program payments go to 10% of the farmers. It's like, well, yeah, well, those 10% of the farmers are producing more than 90% of the goods. And our farm policy is not meant to be a social policy. It's meant to be an economic policy that keeps you guys in business. So that's what it's all about. All right, so a lot of things here, a lot to be proud of in terms of U.S. agriculture, the most productive, dynamic agriculture industry in the world, in the history of mankind. Is it perfect? Does it feel perfect right now? No, it's got a lot of challenges. So we want to talk about those challenges. I do want to make the point, this has been an intentional policy since our nation's beginning, right? None of this stuff is new. I think it is more appreciated now than it has been historically. But I love these two quotes. First, from President Washington. I know of no pursuit in which more zeal and important service can be rendered to any country than by improving its agriculture, its breed of useful animals, and other branches of a husbandman's cares. Don't you love that? Piper, I think we should, we need to bring back husbandry. It's such a good word. That's President Washington. No pursuit in which more zeal and important service can be rendered to our country. That's saying a lot. This was an experiment, right? They were coming from England, where you had big, wealthy landowners and serfs who would tend to the land. And in America, our founding fathers said, no, we want to do it different. We want to attach ordinary citizens to the land. Let them own it. Let them build into it. Let them build their communities from it. And that has served our nation very well. President Jefferson said it well. Cultivators of the earth are the most valuable citizens. They're the most vigorous, the most independent, the most virtuous. Dave, I don't know about that. No, I'm just kidding. You are the most virtuous, and they are tied to their country and wedded to its liberty and interests by the most lasting bonds. In other words, we're not just going to give up on this. Right? Sometimes you think that the merchant class, they're ready to throw everyone under the bus and just move. Or the entertainment class. Think of Rosie O'Donnell. Who's happy that Rosie O'Donnell moved to Ireland or wherever she moved to? Yeah, they can just get up and go. You farmers aren't. You're invested, literally, in the community, in this nation. And so we love that about you. Farm policy has a long history. A lot of people try and tag it to, right in here, the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1933 in the heart of the Depression and the Dust Bowl. But we had a lot of history before that, and we've obviously had a lot of history since. Just some fun images here. Some of y'all may remember that was 1970s tracticade. Of course, one of the biggest, people like to say, oh, these farm programs began in 1933, and it was this one that government got involved in agriculture. But, I mean, what was the biggest thing we ever did? It was giving away tons of acreage, right, to families all across the land, saying if you can make go of it, for a couple of years, you're going to have title to this land because we want to be this nation of citizens and of farmers. It's a really cool deal. We love that history. So, all right, that's the introduction. I just wanted to cheese out for a little bit to let you know that, I know Donald Trump says it a lot, and we appreciate that he loves you guys. We really do. We fight these fights in Washington, D.C. Piper does, Sydney does, Grayson does, Jimmy does, Jeff Harrison, our eccentric guy in Washington, D.C., who's the best lawyer in town on agricultural statutes. All of our crew, we do this with passion because we think what you do is so important to the future of our nation. And a lot has been accomplished, and a lot is coming. And so I'm just going to take some time to go through this. And, oh, by the way, whenever y'all want to break in with questions, please do. I love it. I think it keeps it more fresh. So if you have any questions about these, get after them. First, just to give credit where credit is due, we have some great leaders in place in Congress right now working on your behalf. So the chairman of the Senate Ag Committee is John Bozeman. He's from Arkansas. And Arkansas, of course, is the natural state, big rice producer, big grains and cotton producer. It's a nice kind of blend of Southern and Midwest agriculture. And he has been, John Bozeman is just one of the most credible guys you could ever meet. Kind, sincere, speaks kind of softly, like, and you always want more. How many politicians can you say that of, where you actually want more of what they're having to say? But he's quiet. He gets into it. He just draws you in, and people love. I'll tell you one person who loves him is Amy Klobuchar, his ranking member, who I would say is one of the top Democrats in Congress. She's brilliant. She is super smart. She's hyperactive. She pushes her staff, and she is very pro-agriculture. Now, Democratic Party is kind of suffering right now in terms of its identity. This is my assessment. And look, y'all feel free to interject if someone wants to give in and give a very strong defense of the Democratic Party. I think they need to find themselves, and I want them to. I want them to be a better, more competitive party in rural America. I think that would make them a better party in total. If they followed Amy Klobuchar lead, they would be that. But she and John Bozeman are working together well to do things that matter for rural America. In the House, you have this guy. That's G.T. Thompson from Pennsylvania. First Pennsylvania chairman of the Ag Committee since, I don't know, in like 100 years. It's a great agricultural state, a lot of small agriculture, small dairies. The average dairy size in Pennsylvania is like 230 cows. Here in Colorado, what would be the average dairy size? 10,000 cows, something like that. Y'all have quite a bit. Any dairy in the audience here? Y'all have some big dairy coming in though, don't you? Or here already?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I saw a lot of what looked like forage sorghum and silage being kind of on the way up. I'm sure that's where some people are today. So he loves dairy, but he loves all of agriculture. He has been traveling around the nation and getting out there. His ranking member is Angie Craig. She's from Minnesota. And she, both Klobuchar and Angie Craig have kind of come up under the tutelage of, do y'all remember the name? Say again. I heard someone. So do y'all remember there was a former chairman of the House Ag Committee named Colin Peterson. And Colin Peterson kind of brought up Klobuchar and Angie Craig. So these four, bipartisan, are really, I think, good, strong voices. And then, of course, in the Secretary of Agriculture spot, we have the first ever Secretary of Agriculture from the state of Texas, my home state, in the history of our nation. Anyone know her name? Come on. Robert Roberts, thank you very much. She's an Aggie, like Piper. Piper, where are you? Give them that. What do Aggies say? Yeah. And she would say it louder and prouder than anyone. She was the first female president of that university. She's very dynamic. She's run an American First Policy Institute most recently. Kind of going back to that first slide. So she's good. All right. So what has been done? Well, since the last election, and since we got through the 24 crop year, we had a big disaster package passed in December of 2024. That was the American Relief Act. That had the $30 billion in ECAP. In ECAP and for ELRP and SDRP. So this was the bill that passed $30 billion in relief. It was signed by President Biden before the inauguration, passed by that lame duck Congress, and had a lot in there for it. We'll go through it. Again, ECAP, ELRP. Then, of course, in July, before SDRP, this is kind of a timeline. So this is before SDRP was actually rolled out, the disaster portions. They signed into law the OBBA. We're missing one B there. That's PL 119-21, the One Big Beautiful Act that Dave Cure loves to say loud and proud. Passed July 4th on the nation's birthday. It was pretty cool. And then we've got these other things that are kind of being cleaned up. So I'm going to just go through these. First, the first thing out of the gate, and this was in May of 2025. So they passed these things in December, started implementing them in May and getting money out the door. Again, $30 billion. Started getting it out the door in May. Not a lot of it is out, even yet, here in September. And we should be a little bit frustrated about that. I'm a little bit frustrated about it. ELRP is based on the drought monitor indexes. And amazingly, here in Eastern Colorado, y'all are pretty clear in 23 and pretty clear in 24. And you're pretty clear right now. So someone's looking right. Self, is it you? Something's going on here, but you've got some good looking crops. I know you've dealt with some real hail this year, but and probably those other years as well. But it's been pretty good. So not a whole lot has gone to Colorado. There's the numbers actually. Under ELRP, you got 8.4 million in 2023, 2.4 million in 2024. That's tiny by historical standards for y'all. But this LFP is permanently funded in the Farm Bill, which is good. And some of the limits have been increased on it. And it does, basically, if you have, this is on a per cattle, per mama cow animal unit, and you get paid these supplemental factors. This is with 35% factor. So it might get plussed up again. There were a few counties, but in kind of the northeastern area of Colorado, but not a lot of triggering under ELRP. Anyone have any questions about that? Let's move on to this one. ECAP obviously was the $10 billion for economic losses for 2024. And look, you should have received the biggest lion's share of this. This was 85% that was paid out early on. This went out in very late May into June. This was on a per acre basis. And I just want to say, this was deliberately done. So you should have gotten a self-certification letter and the information from your local FSA office. So if you had planted acres, if you had certified planted acres of barley, it was $18.42 an acre. Of sorghum, $36.14 an acre. Corn, $36.47 an acre. What was remarkable about this one, in terms of history, is they just did it on a per acre, regardless of whether you had irrigated or dry land. And generally, that's pretty favorable if you have a lot of dry land base or dry land corn. I mean, it's kind of, if you're an irrigated corn farmer out here where it's so different, right? In Iowa, it doesn't matter. You can have what they don't call it dry land there, they call it rain fed. You can have rain fed corn, you're going to make 200 bushels. You can have irrigated corn, you just kind of take out a little bit of the risk to more consistently make 200 bushels. Here in our area, the difference is immense, right? What's your normal dry land corn yield here, Dave? What's that? 50 bushels or something?
Yeah. 50 to 80.
50, 80 over time, and you're irrigated, I assume it's somewhere 200, north of 200. We're good. So a lot of difference, but this was just on a simple per acre deal. And that's what I think made it a pretty sweet deal for the Western Plains in total. Now, this week, I think, before September 30th, they're going to do this remaining 15% at least. And if it is 15%, this will be that per acre payment. So again, on sorghum, $6.38. On corn, where are we? $6.44. So it's not a lot, but you guys covered a lot of acres. I know that. So it will be another check coming in by direct deposit, probably later this week. They said they committed to before September 30th. And it could be even a little bit more than 15%. Sydney, have you checked the dashboard this morning? Sydney's going to check it. As of last week, there was $10 billion. They were at 8.05. That's not quite 85%, is it? Right. So if they fill it up all the way to $10 billion, which legally they're supposed to do, they may get up to 17, 18, 19%. And these numbers could go up just a hair, just a little bit. Okay, so we don't have the update yet. So I think we'll see this week. Be looking for this ECAP payment coming in your inbox. Any questions about that one?
Yeah, he does Colorado. That means we may get it.
Dave, I thought Mr. Sonnenberg was getting all that fixed. Dave and I have been talking about this for years. This one should be done out of Washington, D.C. You should get a self-certified letter, and it should go by direct deposit into your account. And I know with with interest rates and everything where they are right now, that money is needed as timely as ever, right? So all good with that? Thank you for the comment, David. The next thing out of the gate was this SDRP. This is the new name for disaster assistance. So keep in mind, we've had disaster programs out of Washington, D.C. for the last several years. In 2017, this is a good trivia game. Anyone remember what it was called in 2017? Well, nice. 1 point for you. Anyone know in 18 and 19? Whip plus.
With class, yeah.
Double whip. And then in 20 and 21, the Biden administration came in. That was ERP. And it was pretty good for 20 and 21. And then they did a 22 disaster program, and that was a wreck. It has had part of it declared unconstitutional. So we'll get into that a little bit. So obviously the Trump administration here on this one, again, enacted December 20th, out the door partially by now, but they wanted to rebrand it. So get away from all those previous names, call it SDRP, which no one knows what it stands for. No, I'm just kidding. I think we do. Supplemental Disaster Relief Program. Is that right, Piper? But all these acronyms get really confusing. And I know it gets confusing to y'all as it's coming out down the pipe. So this program was funded at really up to $20 billion, but they tried to hit the mark on 16 billion because there were some other funds in this disaster pot that were reserved to other uses. So far, 5.4 billion has been dispersed, 52 million to Colorado. I would say you're a little bit behind other states on this. But that may be just a function of how much disaster you had. So in the 23 loss in Colorado, it measured in terms of total dollars is at 357 million and 24 at 244. You've got this amount out the door so far. Obviously, there's more to go. This does count the 35% factor that we had in the initial rollout of stage one. The neat thing about this program and the Southwest Council, we spent a lot of time just talking about what is the best of with the best of ERP, what do we need to avoid going forward, and we wrote a letter and they adopted a lot of the principles, a lot of them, and basically, depending on your level of crop insurance buy-up, they build on top of it. So if you buy at 50%, you get plussed up to 80 for an area of coverage. If you buy at 65%, that much is covered, and that by crop insurance, you get an additional 22.5 points of coverage here, right? And this is more expensive insurance, but you get some level of additional coverage, 15 points. So that was a good model. Do y'all like that model? Let me just ask you. I mean, the design is it encourages you to purchase crop insurance, to self-insure, because you never know when Congress isn't going to be able to do one of these things. So the message that Congress is wanting to send you guys is use what's in front of you. Use federal crop insurance, and then we're going to reward you as you go up the chain. And so I think that's generally a pretty good model. These things are limited. It's $150,000 pay limit. Is that right? 125 or 150 on SDRP. Yeah, 125. But that can get into the entities and things like that. So what's the big question is what's going to happen in SDRP stage 2? And what we've been told, so they've largely gotten the first 35% out on this, and that's where you get the $52.3 million. What happens in stage 2, what they've told us absolutely is we're going to use the exact same methodology. So this kind of building on top of your crop insurance. But what we're going to do is if you actually made a yield somewhere in there in the shallow loss area so that you did not trigger a crop insurance indemnity, this is where we're going to come back and get you in stage 2. And we expect this to roll out in early October. It'll also take into account some quality losses, things like that. But you can see, like in this example, this is corn, 92 bushel APH, actual yield of 78. And those kind of things happen. I don't know if they happened to y'all in 23 or 24. You had a projected price of $591, a harvest price of $488, expected crop value $543.70. Crop insurance guarantee of 380. Actual crop revenue per acre, 380.64. You missed out on indemnity by 4 cents. So it also means we're not taken care of in stage 1 of SDRP. So can you come back in stage 2? The answer is yes. Stage 2 is designed for you. You were in this example right there. So now in stage 2, the idea is you get covered up to that highest level. So they're coming back. They haven't done this in years. And we think it's an important measure of consistency. So we're happy that they're doing this. In this particular example, you come back, you redo the math, and the payment that you would get in this particular scenario is $45.05 per acre. Now you paid $20 in federal crop insurance early on. That's already in the books. And so you can net that out. But this would be the payment, $45.05. And that's based on a 35% factor. Will they come back and plus up the 35% factor in SDRP? How many of y'all think yay? I do too, Dave. Sydney, do you think yay? Sydney's the economist. Sydney's given 2 thumbs up. That's outstanding. Yeah, I can see them just based on where the numbers are tracking right now. I would like to see that 35% factor that was applied to both stage 1 and stage 2 will be applied to stage 2. Hopefully we get that plussed up north of 50 in my book, ideally in the 60 to 65% range. And that would provide another big bite of assistance. And hopefully that would occur before the end of the year. Can't be certain on that, but I know that once they open up stage 2 again in early October next month, less than a month from now, they'll be able to move through that pretty quickly, gauge the total funds out there, and do the plus up. Any questions about disaster?
Yeah, your numbers you got there, what you're saying.
No, Dave, no. Well, they should. I mean, basically, let's look at it. You have this total expected crop value, and generally you're getting somewhere around 20% of that, 20 to 25% at a what was our level of buy-up? At 70%, you're getting 22.5% of that. So that's $120 somewhere around there. And so 35% of that's about $45. So it's the same dollars. It's going to be the exact same methodology. So the math will work out on this. That's generally what on this kind of a yield what you should have gotten. Obviously, some yields are higher, some APHs are higher, and they would have gotten more. Some APHs are lower, they would have gotten less. But this seems pretty consistent with what we're seeing around yesterday.
That plus up decision, is that an administrative or congressional?
That's an administrative. Yeah, this whole kind of how much they plus up. There is a statutory mandate that they can't go above 95%. Now there are ways that things can kind of layer in, and you probably do. They don't enforce that too hard, but just in the basic framework, they can't go above 95. Good. And obviously, this is built as an endorsement of federal crop insurance. The legislators think it's a program that is working well. We can talk about any problems with it, but I hope y'all agree. I mean, obviously, rates are going up in this area. It's a challenge. Maybe not as they're not going up as much as PNC rates seem to be right now, but there are some challenges. We work closely in that federal crop insurance program and try to make sure it works well.
Tom, in the past, that's something we've pressed to our producers is that buy-ups to that higher percentage, because if there's a disaster, it's been paid for in the past. So this is all factored in before they get to the 35%. Is that correct?
That is right. Yeah. So that level where you get help is improves as you go up the chain. So it only presents better, and they are returning a portion of the premium too in the formula. So the 35% factor is applied to everything. So if you pay $40 out of pocket for your crop insurance premium, you get 35% of that, double what you would get if you paid $20,000. And your level of coverage is higher. So that would have been a wise move. All right, so the next thing coming down the pike, that's this SDRP Stage 2 is coming out in October. So is the 24 ARC and PLC payments. Now, I'm assuming most of you guys would have chosen ARC on your base acres for 2024. So I just wanted to remind you here that in the base statute, before the improvements that were made in the One Big Beautiful Bill, there are going to be payments going out in October for ARC, not PLC. The PLC rates, nothing is below the reference prices for 2024. Again, this is the 2024 crop year being paid out here in October of 25, 2 fiscal years later. But we do expect some ARC payments in this area. So this is Kit Carson County. And we expect about 20 million in payments statewide. Sequestration does apply to these payments. And of course, these are the payments that are based on not planted acres, but your old decoupled FSA base, right? And so if you had corn base, we expect about $22.44 per acre. If you had sorghum base, we expect about 31 cents and 30 cents, $31.30 an acre. Oh, maybe I'm getting wrong. Sorry, sorghum is 14. Oh, sorghum irrigated. And this is corn non-irrigated and corn irrigated. Oh, corn irrigated doesn't get because you have good yields. I don't think. Sorry about that. My eyes are getting bad. Wheat, little payments. Anyway, y'all get this. Sydney can run this for any county that you're in, right, Sydney? So yeah, she's happy to do it. Yes, sir.
And also, for some of these farms, like a couple that I bought, they don't have a corn base, so I'm just SOL.
Do they have any base?
Wheat.
Wheat base. Yeah.
But I plant all corn.
Yeah, you planted all corn. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the fix that was put in the Big Beautiful Bill, you'll find probably not that helpful because it still works on the same allocation of crops base that you currently have. We'll get to that in here in a little bit. Yeah, so the wheat payments generally aren't that good. They will be bigger for 25, and we'll show that here in a little bit. Last thing I just wanted to mention on things that were in the queue before we got to the One Big Beautiful Bill is an update on 22 ERP. And I just want to say, you're already kind of mentioned it briefly, but there were some farmers out of Texas. These are good friends of mine who brought a case against this rollout by the Biden administration. Remember, it said if you're based on gender and race, we're going to give you your full crop insurance premium back. And those can be big dollars, right? How much? I mean, I assume the check that most of you guys write for crop insurance is certainly 5 figures. In some cases, going to be 6 figures. And if you were a woman or a racial minority or self-certified to that, that created a bit of a rodeo out here in the West, where we're all nuts, right? In the Western Plains, I know I am, but different people signed it different ways or did as their conscience directed. But these guys stood up and said, "Well, this is just wrong. These farm programs aren't meant to be conditioned upon what you look like. They're not meant to discriminate. So we need to bring a federal case." And God bless them for doing it. Rusty Strickland, Alan West, Brian Baker, all from the Panhandle of Texas. They brought the Strickland versus U.S., Strickland et al. Versus the United States Department of Agriculture. They tried to style it kind of as a class action type suit. Bottom line is they won in court, but USDA still hasn't created the settlement for the plaintiffs and potentially the class. I'll tell you, Department of Justice in this Doge era is trying to say, well, let's just sell this for these 3 farmers. And those 3 farmers, again, to their credit, and I want to name their names because I'm proud of them, Rusty Strickland, Alan West, Brian Baker, they're saying, no, this wasn't about us. We need the money. Yeah, we need it badly because we're suffering. But this wasn't fundamentally about us. This was about this class of farmers. And so they're trying to hold out. They have a big meeting this Thursday, so keep them in your prayers. So, and do you end up getting anything out of this? More of that crop insurance premium back? I think that's all you could really expect, that they treat everyone equally on that particular point. They have enough money left in this program to do that. If they do that, then you might get that crop insurance premium back in 2022. And that would be a nice shot in the arm for a lot of farms. Any questions about that? Yes, sir.
Even if a bunch of money doesn't come back, how lasting do you think the precedent would be not to do that model again in the future, even under different methods?
I tell you what, that's a great question. How lasting will this precedent? Is this just going to be something where we flip flop back and forth between administrations? I will say, I think the Trump administration, in these 8 months that they've been in office, has built a lot of legal bulwark around the constitutional mandates on this, which is this case was won under the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. And it's hard to unwind. You now have a court that has been verified by the Trump administration. Obviously, there's a lot of back and forth between the executive branch and our judicial branch right now in this beautiful, constitutional republic that we have, where we have a separation of powers, and the powers, judicial, congressional, legislative, executive, are meant to kind of grind against one another, right? And why did we set it up that way? To protect our freedoms, right? To protect your freedoms. We want them grinding against each other. So the Trump administration has kind of tried to build some framework around this to make these laws more durable. And it would be hard for a new administration, let's say a new, very kind of woke, very DEI oriented administration comes back in. I mean, I think the Democratic Party at large is trying to kind of walk back from some of those policies. They know they took it too far, and the public reacted and threw them out of office. I'm just trying to analyze it as I see it, not trying to be partisan here. But I think that's what happened in the last election. So I think the mainstream Democratic Party is kind of walking back from that. So I think they pushed it too far. I don't see it just coming all the way back. And the administration, they even published a rule last week, just kind of cut off any future kind of, I hate to use the word, but these kind of woke policies that are out there. Good question. All right. So a lot has been accomplished, but obviously there's more to do. We already talked through this timeline and what's been done. We talked about the ECAP cleanup. This week, we hope the ARC PLC payments in October, SDR stage 2 payments in October, and then presumably toward the end of the year, they'll top that up. So I just wanted to kind of do that accounting for what was in there. And then, of course, the big accomplishment, again, on our nation's 249th birthday, right? July 4th of 2025. Who's excited about our bicentennial next year? I am. Yeah, it's pretty big deal. 250 years of this messy democratic experiment. It is to be celebrated. Should be celebrated. But on the 249th anniversary, we signed into law this. Say it again, Dave. Thank you. It sounds so good out of your mouth. And look, it was all upside for agriculture, right? Higher reference prices, improved ARC, bigger band of coverage, increased loan rates, increases to the base acre potential, updates to the pay limits for the larger scale farming going in. And this is such a battle every year. You have John Bozeman going up against who's our favorite pro pay limits senator from Iowa? Chuck Grassley. Oh man, Chuck Grassley, he farmed in Iowa in the 60s, and he still thinks the economics of farming in eastern Colorado should match the economics of farming in Iowa in the 1960s. Doesn't quite work, right? He's always a big proponent of deep pay limits. And the fact that they were able to get some updates and increases was a big deal. In total, it was a $49.7 billion investment. That's the largest investment in farm policy, long-term investment since the 2002 Farm Bill, which is when Jimmy and I were in our prime, right, as young men. That's when we were up there working on it. Okay, what did it do? Well, you had the old reference price. This chart is meant for help to help you obviously download it. These are the new reference prices in these two columns. Basically, you have a statutory reference price, which serves as a floor, and then there's a formulaic effective reference price, which is the higher of either that statutory or this formula that can float up. And that formula is 85% of the previous 5-year Olympic average season average prices for the previous 5 years. So in corn, it's dark blue here, it's underlined. The effective reference price, the formulaic reference price is higher than the minimum statutory. The other nice thing about these minimum statutories, though, is that they serve as the floor in the calculation of any given year on this 5-year average. So there are, in that 5-year average, there are some corn prices below 410. So you strike those out, replace them with 410. And so it does affect on both sides. So these effective reference prices are going to be 545 for barley, corn 442, grain sorghum 467. Probably not a lot of lentil base in Colorado. Anyone have lentil base? It's always a fun exercise. Oats, you may have a few here and there. Wheat, certainly you have a lot. And the effective reference price for wheat is at 635, which is pretty healthy. Any questions about that? We'll go into it, break it out one by one. For 2025 ARC and PLC, 2025 ARC and PLC will not be paid out until October of next year, so 13 months from now. In the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, they did say that you're going to get the higher of regardless of what you chose this year. So you may have chose PLC, but if ARC produces a bigger payment for Kit Carson County or Baca County or wherever you're from, then you get that one. So that's a nice feature. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the feature for 26, 27, 28, 29. You still have to make your choice for those years. They did increase the ARC benchmark guarantee to 90%. That's up from 86. And they increased the coverage rate to 12%. So this isn't meant to displace crop insurance, but it isn't meant to supplement it. Obviously, it is tied to your base acres. So regardless of what, if you plant corn on the ground, you insure it as corn, but your ARC PLC is for wheat. And that's just the way it is. They haven't done a full kind of base update yet, but we'll talk a little bit about that. They did also remove the ARC and SEO restrictions. That's a big deal. So you can have both ARC and SEO in the future on the same crop. So you could have corn ARC and you can do corn SEO, no problem. We expect just the improvements in the One Big Beautiful Bill to bring, based on the current math, and this could go up, because right now I think the price forecasts are a little shinier than what they will likely be. These are the USDA price forecasts, but based on the current price forecasts, the improvements of the One Big Beautiful alone are going to create $217 million increase to the assistance provided through this program alone in the state of Colorado. And most of that, of course, is over here on the eastern side. Any questions about that? I have just some examples. Here's an irrigated corn based on a 158.13 benchmark yield for, this is Kit Carson County, right? Oh yeah, it says it right there. Thank you, Cindy. So this would be the guarantee on irrigated corn. The max payment would be $79.54. And we expect these to max out under the old and the new. For 2025 for corn, that $79.54 would go up to $95.45. So an increase of a little over $16 per acre, which is not small. For wheat, you go from 39 to 48, on sorghum 19 to 23. This is non-irrigated sorghum. Irrigated sorghum would be a little bit better. Same with wheat. Any questions about those? Everyone say these. Yes, sir, Dave.
What you get the higher of the ARC. What if you're an ARC IC? You still do the same thing?
No. If you're in, well, let me say this. Sydney, you may need to help me here. If Dave is in ARC IC, does he still get the higher of ARC or county if in fact they are higher? Okay. Okay. So only if you're in ARC County or PLC, then you get the higher of. But if you did elect into ARC IC, how many of y'all with that? Couple, 3, 4. Okay. Y'all may be, generally, every time I look at these numbers from USDA and they document how many people use ARC IC, and I think it's 4. And Sydney, I think we've just found our 4 people in the nation. right here. Well, and I know it's worked. Actually, I say that, Sydney used to work with a guy named Chris Cogburn, and Chris, I know, really dug into this. He was a crop insurance agent, and there are several places where it works better. So if you're in ARC-IC, you're in ARC-IC. It's likely going to be, if you chose it back then because it's better than ARC County, it's still going to be better in my opinion. So should be no skin off your nose. And the windows on it are definitely better. Those are changed into one big beautiful bill. So your choice should be good. Okay, this is the base acre update provision that they did. And they said we're gonna allow 30 million acres of base, new base nationwide. Now that's about a 10% increase. We have about 300 million acres of base nationwide. I think it's about 320. Generally, Colorado is overbased. You have more base than you're planting. And that's the same for a lot of different areas around the nation. There are other areas of the nation that are underbased. They're planting more crops than what they have base. So you can imagine those were the big drivers behind this. What state did this primarily come from? South Dakota. They are way underbased. They also happen to have the majority leader of the Senate in their state, so they're carrying a pretty big stick right now. But even with this, there are farms here and there that you pick up some land that was not based at all because you were young and you could afford it, whereas the land with the base maybe didn't. So there are examples where people all over the nation are going to be able to use this. And basically, if you are planting more than your eligible base, then, and once they put out these rules, you'll be able to get an allocation for a portion of that. It's going to be based on your average planted acres from 19 to 23. Okay, and I've been getting this mixed up in my mind. So Sydney, if we have 100% wheat base, but we've been planting corn and sorghum, let's say we've been doing corn, sorghum, and wheat in rotation in the 19 through 23 years, is the new allocation of base going to be based on the old ratio, 100% wheat, or what you actually planted in 19 to 23? Okay. So if you are 50-50 corn and wheat, let's say, over the last 19 to 23 crop years, then that is the new allocation that will be given to the new base acres. But if they're already based, probably doesn't give you much of an opportunity there.
Total base.
Total base.
Because our farming practices completely changed back then. It was wheat followed wheat. So they only
Yeah.
had half the acres.
Yeah.
Now we pretty much standard. So we only have a third of the acres. Wow. Productions.
Yeah.
Here you are.
Instead of this here. This is really interesting. Oh man, I'm glad you brought this up.
I understand. The base total is, but they still call it a new.
Yeah. Well, and they still have to write the rules on this. And you can imagine those rules will get really weedy. So Dave, I think it might be good to get with Jerry Sonnenberg and say, we ought to, when they're writing these rules, be sure to get a look to make sure that fallow areas that have fallow rotations get treated fairly and well. I know there's same issues like in my part of Texas where we use a lot of skip row planting patterns. And those are kind of treated in the same way. Only a certain amount of the base or a portion of the base gets put in. So the rulemaking will be really important on this. So let's talk a little bit after and get with Sydney and Piper and we can make sure and make this a good priority. Because there are a lot of areas that are going to benefit from this 30 million acres of additional base. Again, that's 10%. And we want to make sure that Colorado, the Western Plains, are treated fairly in that. Maybe we can talk to Loren Boebert about it too, and Hickenlooper and Bennett, who serves on the Ag Committee. So that'd be good. Okay. Finally, the payment limitations go from 125 to 155. And then it'll be indexed beginning in 2025. So even if you apply, let's say, everyone's talking about inflation, right? What is the inflation target for this year? For 2025? Less than 2% is what they're trying to say. But let's just say it's 2%. Then in 2025, because it begins in 2025, this 155 may be adjusted by 2%. So if so, that would be an additional $3,000 roughly. So your pay limit may be 158. That's a big deal. This is also a huge deal. Treats all pass-through entities such as S corps, LLCs, et cetera, the same as joint ventures and general partnerships. So right now, if you're in GP, if say you and your brother are in a general partnership, you get two of these, right? It's 155 and 155. So the farming entity gets 310 together. But if you're currently two brothers in an LLC, you don't. That LLC is constrained to one limit. This will require some reorganization, but I think with tax law and with liability that you always want to think about on your farm, this flexibility to treat an LLC in the same way that a GP would be treated will be a good thing, a really smart change over time. So thank you to John Bozeman and others who really led that. They also did do a little bit of loosening up on the AGI. Who gets bothered by the AGI means test? It's just obnoxious, I think. They are trying to change this, and they've kind of had fits and starts. They're trying to change it to an average gross income instead of an adjusted gross income. There you see the word. That's a super important distinction. So adjusted gross income is a term of art for accountants. It's like line 42 of your tax form on a 1040. Average farm income would be looking at your gross, total kind of receipts on your farming enterprise, and if that number is more than 75% of your total AGI, then there's no restriction on you in these programs. That would be a huge improvement. We got that done in the ECAP proposal, but they didn't get it done in the SDRP, which was passed at the same time, which if you're a real nerd about this stuff, it just drives you crazy. David, does it drive you crazy? Yeah. So David just functionally admitted that he's a real nerd about this stuff, like me. Yeah. And so like, how did they miss this? How did they not get it all done in one fell swoop? But they're trying to make it bye. So y'all need to know that it'll be a big improvement just to take some of the pain out of this. Finally, I just want this. I said finally on the last one, but I did want to remind you all that there is the marketing loan function there. The marketing loan rates were increased from corn on 220 to 242. Does anyone want to put their corn in loan at 242? No. But why do we have a marketing loan? Well, it's so that you can ride out these seasons when the market isn't strong. You can put it under loan. And then there's also this marketing loan game in LDPs. Do y'all remember those terms? They're still in the law. And that happens if your posted county price, which accounts for basis, gets below these market systems loan rates. But you can always put your crop under loan and just kind of wait it out, right? Non-recourse loan, if at the end of it you have no marketing opportunities, you can forfeit it to the government and it's free and clear, right? And it's a non-recourse loan. So I just wanted to remind you that those are there because who's nervous? I mean, y'all have good cattle feeding industry and other things going on out here, but I tell you, where they have less of that, like up in the Dakotas, they are super nervous about basis really widening during this harvest season. So we'll see how it goes. Anyone want to bet that the PCP gets below marketing loan rates this year? Lord, I hope not. I hope not. And I don't think it will, but it's good to know that it's there just in case, right? All right. Okay, so those were all the issues on Title I. I did want to cover the crop insurance issues because these are big as well. This was a $6.4 billion investment in crop insurance. What does it do? Well, it increases the premium support for BU and OU, and EU is a function of BU and OU, and so that goes up as well. How many of that was complete gibberish, what I just said, probably most of you, but BU, OU is like your units. Like, who has ever been frustrated that you bought an enterprise unit insurance policy and then you had hail on 40% of your ground? And because you put everything in this unit together as an enterprise unit, maybe you didn't get covered on that hail loss because you had good crops in the other areas because of the rains. Anyone ever been in that situation? It's not a fun one. So Congress this time wanted to go to the BU, OU. The idea is if we can get more people buying at these levels, with the increases, a 5-point increase, that's a meaningful amount of dollars. And then maybe stacking some of these area-based programs on top. So this is the other big deal. On the area-based plans, and there's two kinds. There's the area-based plans by county, SEO and ECO, and those premium cost shares are going up to 80%. That's huge. That's the equivalent. If you've ever read about stacks and cotton, that's the equivalent there. And then there's these kind of aggregation of risks where, like one that Colorado corn, to your credit, along with Texas corn worked on, is called CLIP, where you can put your wheat, theoretically put your wheat, your corn, your sorghum in the same unit and aggregate the risk over the unit, kind of build an umbrella policy over everything that's less expensive and more is actually tailored to your farm rather than just being based on the county. So those are also going to increase in the coming years. So it's a big deal.
And also put the livestock.
Yeah, you can put the livestock in CLIP. So,
Or 26 wheat, fall planted crops are not gonna be up. Or it may block us so far.
It'd be spring crops.
thank you for that distinction. For 2026 crop year, wheat does not get into this CLIP. CLIP will just be for spring crops only and livestock in 26. Hopefully, though, in 27, that will apply to everything. Really, the ECO premium is at 80 for 26 as well. SEO won't kick in until 27 as well, according to the big beautiful bulletin that they put out a couple weeks ago. Beginning farmer and rancher benefits are increased significantly from 5 years to 10 years. So talk to your crop insurance agents about that. But these are the big deals. Just the fact that there's better premium cost share. The design, what Congress is trying to say to you is go out and do more. Buy more insurance, self-insure. Again, because we don't know if we're going to have these disaster programs in the future. There is actually a group of senators right now working on introducing a permanent disaster program. Dave, I said that for you. Because Dave's been advocating for this for years, trying to do something that attaches to and continues to build in. And so that's always a thing that's talked about in Congress. But right now, Congress is saying to you, self-insure. It's reliable. You know what you have and protect your own interests. And these are just kind of some of the numbers around what was done. Just on a 75 EU policy, the old producer premium per acre would have been 1720. This is on an irrigated corn, Kit Carson, 75% coverage level. What do most of y'all buy on irrigated corn? 75, pretty reflective. She's great with the numbers, so I'm sure she mined all the data out. This is 173 bushel APH, 1,000 acres. 1496 per acre. 1720 per acre goes down to 1496. That's good. That's only helps. The dollars dollars of coverage per acre of premium going from 35.46 to 40.7. On these SEO or ECO, there's also a really big benefit there, right? So 3130. This is the dollar per acre of coverage. Sorry, here's the premium. Old producer premium 341 for that SEO, now $1.95. That's a huge increase when you spread that out across a lot of acres. The tax provisions are also hugely important. Just going to run through these quickly. They made permanent extension of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act marginal rates for sure. This is a big one. So here are your marginal rates, 37 being the high if you're making over 609,351. This is for the single payer. Different little numbers for married filing jointly, but those are easy to access. 35% is a normal tax bracket in that 609 down to 243, 32% below 243. So y'all are familiar with the marginal rate. That's what everything keys off of. The corporate income tax rate was put at 21%. So if you're Schedule C or something like, not Schedule C, a C Corp, you can get into some of that kind of stuff. The 199A pass-through is a huge deal. So the first 20% of your income is sheltered under this for most entities. And the fact that they permanently extended that is just a huge deal. And then there's the corresponding means for co-ops to use this. How many of your co-ops are using the 199A /G provision? provide some tax benefit back to you as a taxpayer. It's a big deal, obviously, but this treats independents well as co-ops, and just small businesses. This applies to every small business in the room that's following Schedule F. 179A is this is where you can deduct the cost of a tractor in a year. How many of y'all have used these kind of tax measures, 179A and bonus depreciation, to help manage your tax liability? I mean, obviously, the John Deere dealers, Case IH dealers love this. It can also apply to used equipment. So there's a lot going on in this, but it's all good from if you're into managing your tax liability, having tools to manage, and also paying lower taxes. This is great. There's Donald Trump. I love, y'all remember the little things on the gas pumps that had Joe Biden saying, I did that? That's kind of funny. Sometimes we just got to laugh at all this stuff, right? I'd say this is Trump's big thing. He is so proud of this and the legacy. And politically, it was pretty smart. Like, what were the really new things in this tax bill? It did a lot of great extensions, a lot of positive things for agriculture. But the new things were really aimed at the middle class. No tax on tips. No tax on overtime. No tax on Social Security. Those are great things for working people all across the nation. I think they'll bode well in the midterms next year. Also, there's some interesting things like R&D expense amortization. There's some provisions relative to the soil, the benefits of your soil. You can look into this. A great resource on these tax issues is the Farm CPA, a guy named Paul Neefer, who actually lives in Colorado now. And Paul's become a good friend. So check out his blog if you never have the farm. Just Google Farm CPA and you'll find Paul Neefer. It also extends the 45Z credits on clean energy, biofuels, and other kinds of low carbon energy through 2029. Incentivizes domestic feedstocks, applies traditional biofuels, SAF, that's sustainable aviation fuel, and RNG, renewable natural gas, can also qualify for this. 48E, sunset for solar and wind, and extended for other renewable electricities. And then permanent state tax exemptions to $15 million, $30 million for married filing jointly. That's a big deal. And it's made permanent and indexed for inflation. So hopefully no more of this, like Jimmy was wanting to die last year because there was this tax incentive to die. No, I'm just kidding. Jimmy. This is at your sport. But you'll know what I'm talking about, where you have these cliffs. It's like, well, if I die this year, my family is well taken care of. But if I die next year, they're totally screwed. That's not good policy. Can we all agree on that? So I am glad that the Republicans finally just put this in law and it's permanent. And it will take an act of law and change it. And that 15 or 30 will index over time. Any questions on tax provisions? Y'all generally excited about this? Positive? I mean, it's a very pro-business thing.
Taxes are gonna be.
Taxes aren't an issue unless you're making money. No truer words have ever been spoken, Dave Cure. And hopefully you're going to make some money. And the ability to manage it, right? When you do make some money, but you can make investments for the future. That's what agriculture is all about. So I think these tools are actually pretty strong. Good. Hey, I know y'all use conservation programs too. Just to track back on a little history, this is an interesting chart. It shows what the Democrats did in their version of reconciliation, which was the Inflation Reduction Act. And remember when the Democrats had control a short 2 years ago, this is kind of going to the flip-flopping nature of Congress and policy right now, right? And well, like, how can we just land? What was the greatest existential crisis threatening mankind? Climate change, right? Did anyone feel it? I mean, you couldn't sleep at night because of the threat of climate change. This was Democratic policy, greatest existential threat known to mankind. So they piled a lot of dollars in to the IRA, through the IRA, a $23 billion investment to their credit in climate smart grants and all this kind of stuff. It was tied to, it all had to be climate smart. And the sad fact of it is the Biden administration couldn't get it out the door. You know, they had Robert Bonnie was a great undersecretary and things and talked a great game, but NRCS just couldn't get the wheels turning, get it out the door. So what they do in the One Big Beautiful Bill out back, they took this baseline and they stretched it out over time to the credit of John Bozeman and others. So that's a big benefit for you guys. EQIP will be at $2.65 billion a year. That's about a 30% increase. There'll be 30% more contracts theoretically be covered. So if you're interested in EQIP or CSP, or maybe you can put together a regional conservation partnership program, RCPP, and get after it because there's dollars out there. And I'll tell you, this new NRCS chief, her name is Aubrey Betancourt. David, have you met with her? Is she not impressive?
Tired.
She is a tiger, says David Gibson, and I totally agree. She's going to get some things done, and she's also reworking some of the systems within NRCS to make it simpler, and that's awesome, right? To cut down on some of the paperwork. I believe in this girl. She's really impressive. There's also research investments. So Colorado State, I'd be happy, in some of the ARS facilities nationwide. Trade investments. Who believes we need to ship more agriculture? Right, everyone. We got to get it off our shores. Not all of it. Like, we love value added. We love processing it here. We love putting it through cattle, and we love putting it through ethanol plants. But we still overproduce for our needs. So we need to have these export markets open. So we had the old MAP and FMD. Essentially, they doubled MAP and FMD with this new program in the One Big Beautiful Bill. So we have double the money, go promote our products worldwide. Doesn't mean, you know, the fundamentals of trade are you got to find a willing buyer and a willing seller. And that doesn't happen by any trade deal hammered out in an executive branch office. That happens among the merchants. But we can smooth the rules and ease the playing field. All right, so that's what's all in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And it was a lot. It was a lot. Now, we know even with that, to Dave's point, you ain't paying taxes if you ain't making money. And right now, agriculture isn't making money. Generally, we're underwater. The cost of production is higher than what we're coming in with. And people are seeing this. So John Bozeman, GT Thompson, Brooke Rollins, they're all saying it. There needs to be more done to support agriculture as we're going down this road. Brooke Rollins last week said we need to do something to address the high cost of production and the fact that prices are still in a place where farmers are not profitable. It's really a fourfold problem in our just trying to simplify this for the legislators, and we're talking with them all the time on this. One, we got depressed commodity crop prices. And I say crop there. You know, who is the one happy agricultural group in the nation right now? Oh gosh, these beef guys. It's awesome. And my father and I have a herd of cattle down in Lubbock. We're about to hire armed security guards. I'm just kidding. We have the Texas Southwest Cattle Ranger. We're pretty good at that. And cattle wrangling is still it's a hanging crime in Texas according to state law. Is that pretty cool? I think it's cool. I mean, I wouldn't want to see it happen, but hopefully it's the deterrence effect of good, strong laws, right? If you have good, strong laws, maybe you don't have to use them. I'm sorry to get philosophical here. Okay, so depressed commodity prices, high input costs, and they're there and they're sticky and they're challenging. Some have come down, limited trade opportunities, you know, for all the talk about opening new markets. And it's been great talk. And you may be really excited about this kind of new way of doing business, and I am, because I think we have to deal a little harder with our foreign competitors / customers. It's a hard thing. And then we have a hole in the spending between FY25 and 26. So just some charts to lay this out. I don't have to tell you all about the declining crop prices. They're going down. The bases are widening. The trend is not good. And this is pretty normal in agriculture. The world is, in fact, in oversupply. So even if we have all the trade agreements in the world, you know, if a foreign country is not needing that product, they're not going to buy it. So we are in a bit of an oversupply. We need to realize that. And that's part of the reason why it's taken some time to work through this, even as we hammer out better deals to theoretically have better access to these nations. Our cost of production expenses are up. These aren't broken out by the style, I don't think, of production expense. But you can see it on the crop by crop. But what are these? Certainly interest rates are high relative to they have been over the past 5 years. The cost of steel and machinery is big. Fertilizer is still up. Fuel is down just a little bit, right? Hooray. It's the one thing that you might say is down a little bit. And hopefully interest rates will continue to go down a little bit. We had a little rate cut last week, and perhaps there'll be more of that. Seed costs are up. Machinery costs are up. Land costs and rents nationwide are up. So it's a real challenge that we have on the cost of production. We do have the trade slowdown. This encapsulates. This is our U.S. trade agricultural exports year over year, and you can see the drop this year. And I think part of that is just the uncertainty. And Trump realizes that, right? He says, I'm going to stick by my farmers. We did a trade war back here. I stuck by my farmers, and we actually, by the end of the year, we weren't off that much. And then we grew dramatically in the next 3 years of his office, right? I think that's what they're hoping for in this fact. They're hoping this number will come up some before the end of the year, obviously, but then we hit a zoom going forward. And that's what we all need. But they are saying the right thing, say, look, we're going to stand by our farmers in the meantime. So that's the good news. This is kind of the whole, so this is the new investment in the One Big Beautiful Bill. That's great. Problem is it doesn't really start till FY27. This is our historic agricultural spending over time. This is the last 25 years. So you can see how it's ranged. There are good times when prices are high and the federal government doesn't have to spend much. That's by design. That's the way it's supposed to be. Oops, sorry. And there are other years where prices are low and the federal government has to step in and needs to. That's what it's all about. Right now, even with the additions of the One Big Beautiful Bill, we're in this hole right here. And so it's the fourth aspect of the problem. And it's why we think, and when we get back to this group, it's why G.T. Thompson, John Bozeman, Amy Klobuchar, Angie Craig, Brooke Rollins, the members of Congress from all over this nation who serve well. They make tremendous sacrifices to try and be a voice in Washington, D.C., and they're all saying it, that we need to do something yet this year to stand by our farmers. And that's what we're fighting for. I want to hear your input on what that might look like. But let me just leave you with these some more quotes, just to get cheesy again, just like I was at the first. There's a first one, I love this, by Jonathan Swift. Y'all know Jonathan Swift, Gulliver's Travels, all that kind of stuff. Great satirist, kind of made fun, mocked the king in his day with good writing. He said he gave it for his opinion that whoever can make 2 ears of corn or 2 blades of grass to grow up on a spot of ground where only one group of poor would deserve better of mankind and do a more essential service to his country than the whole race of politicians put together. We love good politicians, but I'll tell you what, we love you farmers. Second, from Daniel Webster. And this is engraved, this is emblazoned on, if any of y'all ever come to Washington, D.C., let me give you a tour, because this is emblazoned on the ceiling of the U.S. Capitol. The quote by Daniel Webster, when tillage begins, other arts follow. The farmers, therefore, are the founders of human civilization. This was the root of our nation. This is what George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were talking about. And it's why our politicians today are saying, we've got to come around this basic fundamental industry. Finally, I love this. We were listening to this in the car on the way up yesterday. Y'all know Merle Haggard? Famous poet. Kind of poet laureate of our time. No one likes Merle Haggard? Come on, Okie from Muskogee back there. Y'all know his You're Walking on the Fighting Side of Me song. Anyone want to sing? The rest of us can count on being free. They love our milk and honey, but preach about some other way of living. If you're walking down this road, you're walking on the fighting side of me. I want you to know that we're going to be fighting for your interests in Washington, D.C. We're going to keep that fight up. And you have a lot of people in your corner that are fighting that fight, including, I'll say, my neighbor in Washington, D.C. is your congressman, Loren Boebert, and she's a fighter. And apparently Piper, is she coming in this morning? 15 minutes out? She wanted to see you guys gather. So she's going to be here in just a bit. So we got to have some more questions until she gets here. But she's a fighter, kind of like Merle Haggard, right? They love the milk and honey. But, and look, from a big picture on ag policy, we want the bulk of the population So we already established 225,000 farms in our nation meet the needs and export our surplus across the world for our population of 330 million people in our nation. That's a big ratio. That's a really huge ratio of how much y'all individually take care of others. And we want them to love the milk and honey. We want them to live in our nation. We just want them to appreciate where it comes from and all the risk that you guys take year after year, putting your personal wealth on the line each year to produce that crop. So we're going to keep up in this fight, and we're going to keep training up the young guns like Grayson and Piper and Sydney. So let's see what other questions y'all might have.
Tom, I'll start it out. I've been around you for enough years to know what it's about. It's about getting young people in agriculture. I've been involved with farm programs since '83, for over 40 years. Every farm bill we talk about getting young people in agriculture, but when they pass the farm bill, nothing ever. They give them a little tidbit here and there. If you want to get young people in agriculture, you need the permanent disaster program. In 2008 was the only farm bill that ever actually dealt with that. I don't think they meant to, but that we got what, Roger, 40 to 50 young people started here in Cape Harrison County alone through that 08 farm bill because of the SURE program. But if you need to do the permanent disaster, and then you need to limit the payment limit to $100,000. That way, a husband and wife, a young couple getting started, that's $200,000 to start out with a couple sections of ground or whatever. That's plenty of money. You increase the payment limits, you're just increasing the bigger corporate farms. You just get larger because they get more money to pay. So, by putting a permanent disaster bill and limiting the payment limits to it, you will encourage and you will grow young people in that.
So,
Or enough to.
well, Dave, I love the heart behind that question. We all want to provide avenues for the next generation. I talked to a farmer this morning who was going to give the young man, not a relation, that he's trying to pass farm to rent free for a year. Get on your feet. And that's not federal policy, obviously. That's just kindness. That's just kind of mentoring mentality. And it honestly is the kind of mentality that makes agriculture in this nation really beautiful, I think. From a policy standpoint, yeah, so obviously we don't have a standing disaster, and this has been Dave's priority for years. And I think we've had effective ad hoc disaster, but the rules change all the time. I think we're on a better model now. I think, honestly, if they took this SDRP model with a few little tweaks and said, we're going to make that a permanent deal, and maybe they just do it for the beginning farm. We'll give them that extra. That I think is now to a point where Congress could say we could get around that. But right now they just have the additional premium subsidy in crop insurance for the beginning farmer rancher, now up to 10 years versus the first 10 years. Then obviously there are also like loans, low cost loans you can get at the Farmers Home Administration.
Those are nearly impossible to acquire. My own son tried
Yeah.
a year ago.
Yeah. You have to be.
His answer, when he came back from meeting with him at the dinner, I don't know which.
Yeah, FHA.
Said he had to have basically a cosigner with 3 times the collateral.
Yeah.
Of just the piece he wanted to buy before they even talked.
Yeah.
And so he goes, that's an uphill battle.
Yeah. And you have to be denied by other lenders, commercial lenders. So it's the weirdest deal. You have to have this credit worthiness. It's like, well, if we're really intent on just helping out the beginners, let's and we're saying, they can't get commercial lending. And that's when they come over to us. Well, let's be a little bit more generous in the way and expeditious in the way we get through it. This gets to some USDA staffing issues too. How many of y'all are worried about FSA or USDA staffing out in the country? Anyone? Yeah. I'm worried. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, crop insurance agents have come up. They're doing a lot of the work. God bless them. Thank you. They don't get compensated for any of that FSA work. They're helping kind of clear the decks. to make it easier for FSA, but we gotta, and this is a big challenge for Brooke Rollins. We'll be honest about it. I mean, she's a great talker, but we got some real needs to make sure that the county offices stay staffed, the research facilities stay staffed, and we get through this. I mean, the idea of their reorganization plan is to push more resources out to the country. That sound good? I think most of us would probably say, yeah, that sounds great. But at the same time, we're seeing a county office where maybe they had 4 staff last year and now they're down to 2. And these ladies are stressed and saying they need help, and we're not finding the help. So there are some very real practical issues that they're having to work through right now.
What about the opening of the USDA office in Fort Collins? Will that help the FSA in Colorado?
Yeah, it should. I mean, and the whole mantra, I do appreciate Brooke Rollins and the way she's trying to lead, saying, be on your toes, lean forward, lean into the issues on behalf of the U.S. farmer. We've not had better rhetoric. I mean, I love Brooke Rollins. She's out there saying, this is all about you guys. Whereas Tom Vilsack, and I'll say, I thought Tom Vilsack was a great secretary in his first 8 years under President Obama. But these last 4 years under Biden, it was like the inmates were running the asylum, and he had this big whiteboard that he would kind of lecture you on how kind of the established farmers were kind of keeping their thumb down on the young farmers and the more diverse farmers and all this kind of stuff. And it was this kind of like university professor lecture about remaking the face of rural America. It's like, no, we got to invest in the people who are putting it on the line each year. That's our attitude. And if we make it good for current farmers, there's no better way to attract in the young farmers. I mean, ultimately, if all they see is struggle and consolidation is hard, if what they see is excitement, technology, they're going to want to get in. And I know a lot of the young farmers in our area, they're dynamic and they're getting after it. They are covering more ground than the generation they're replacing. It's hard to imagine how the younger set that are coming in are going to manage the same amount of land and resources and productivity that a bigger set of people are managing now. But we probably could have said that about every generation since the early 1900s, right? Since the mechanical revolution. So do we trust in technology that's going to give these guys and gals the tools to make it? And then we also have in Colorado, you'll have a beautiful diversity of agriculture. Regardless of what Tom Vilsack says, there are good, diverse, small niche markets that are being grown up. You'll have, I think, the most organic acres in the nation in Colorado. Is that a point of pride? But, it's good for those folks around Boulder. And it's good that they have opportunities, and it's good that they can, sell into a market. Probably not a lot of y'all wanting to man farm to market stand every Saturday morning because you're working hard all during the week and even through the weekends just to get your crops going on a big scale. But that's what I love. I love the diversity of it all. I love that you guys as big commercial farmers create the niches for these weekend warriors who have school teaching jobs and want to manage a farmer's market on Saturday. It's great. It's all good.
One of the things, a big issue in Boulder County, is that a lot of these FSA offices, they need to educate the people that are in there better so they know what the programs are, because a lot of them don't understand the programs. Yeah. Number 2 is all the open space in Boulder County is buying up at absurd, crazy prices, and then they don't take care of it. I mean, yeah, you talk about the Canadian thistle, you go there and play to and take care of it. We're looking into it. Well, by the time they look into it, we've already scattered seed all the way out to Kansas. Yeah. And that's frustrating. So, they buy all this land and they can't take care of it.
Yeah, that is so frustrating. And for people who the basic ethic of the farmer is to take care of the land, to steward that resource, to make it better for the next generation than it was for you, to clean up that ground and then see it go to waste or to go back to weeds there's nothing more frustrating. I mean, and it goes to why we should count our blessings and why we're so proud to represent you in Washington. in terms of the job you do of stewarding our land's resources so that they're productive. So they are actually producing $500 billion in new wealth that ripples through our economy every year. That's why we're unabashed. I'd say 20 years ago, it wasn't that cool. And we kind of marched into it, but now more and more members of Congress, and they may know less and less because they have less and less background in agriculture. Demographically, the Congress is looking a lot like our society, right? So fewer and fewer grew up on a farm. But even with that, they do still don't count them off. They still greatly appreciate the plenty that they know in this nation. The fact that we've never known real want. We've never seen, even through the pandemic, when everything else was there, run on stores for toilet paper, right? That's crazy. And there was a little bit of that on beef, a little run on the beef market. That's great if you're a beef producer. But the industry restocked those very quickly. I guess you guys could have brought corn cob back into fashion if the run on toilet paper had continued. That might be a good way to get some additional value out of your corn cob.
What do you think the chances are of getting the rest of the Farm Bill passed by the end of the year?
Yeah, I didn't even say it. I think there was a little note about Farm Bill 2.0. Sorry. So GT Thompson is talking about it all the time. He is the definition. If you want to look up in the dictionary, happy warrior, they could have a little picture of GT Thompson right there with him. He is going to get it done. And Angie's going to come along and all that stuff. You may have read in the news this morning, 600 national groups said they're going to oppose a skinny farm bill unless it reinvests everything, puts everything back into food stamps that was taken out in the Republican reconciliation bill. Now, this was led by a group called the National Sustainable Agricultural Coalition. It's kind of a small farmer group. And EWG and these kind of people who have been critics of agriculture, but they get a bunch of these, kind of barroom scene of Star Wars weirdos signing on these, and they say, we got a letter with 600 people. Well, so that's not going to work. Obviously, the Republicans are in control, but can they get some of the key elements done? Essentially, a lot of that is authorizations that don't matter as much. They got the key, they got the heart of the Farm Bill done, the farm programs that support you guys, the conservation title, the trade aid. So there is some downside risk with just taking a bill across the floor. A lot of potential amendments, a lot of negative consequences that could occur. So they're having to weigh all that. But I think they would like to get those additional 900 pages of authorizations and updates done. And they would like to attach it to something at the end of the year. That's what GT would really like. And he's got to do the work here in October and November to do that. But I don't expect anything too controversial. There may be some really positive tweaks to crop insurance. Dave, maybe just maybe, they can find an offset and do add in kind of a more permanent element of this disaster program. So we're going to be working on all that this fall. I'm sorry I left that out. Permanent E15. So this is a big priority for national corn growers, as well it should be. I mean, that's just, we talk about exporting, but isn't it great when we use more of our product here at home, when we add value to it, that again ripples through the economy. So E15, obviously a lot of studies have been done. Safe, can you get it into the areas all over the nation? We think it's feasible. That the U.S. could meet, all states could meet an E15 standard. So to me, it's when you're defining the art of the possible and picking your battles in Washington, D.C., to me, this is a really good battle to fight. Is it going to fix all the problems tomorrow? We'll still have supply and demand, and you corn farmers will still outproduce, and we'll have seasons of low prices. But if it's a start. And if we're using more of our corn here, that only helps. So E15, thanks for raising it. It's an important battle. Yes, sir.
So we've had some foreign customers get mad at us, increase their purchases from other countries. In the case of soybeans, it doesn't affect us. We don't raise the price. If that happens to wheat, that will directly affect us. So what are the conversations in Washington about keeping our foreign customers?
Yeah, this is a great question. What are the conversations? What is kind of the status of the trade war? And probably the best example of this is from my home area, cotton. We have absolutely put our U.S. cotton industry on the altar of free trade. And now, because of some weakness in production for a couple of years, and because of these trade deals with China, which is by far the largest consumer of cotton, right? And they knit the textiles that come back in the form of these good-looking shirts you guys are wearing. Thanks for wearing cotton shirts, by the way. And look, that's a they have now backed away. They're getting their cotton from other areas, primarily Brazil, but also India and others. And they're just kind of freezing the U.S. cotton market out. And boy, the cotton guys are depressed about it. It's rough, and it has a hard impact on the infrastructure around cotton, where there are a lot of segments of cotton that have to have that throughput. Soybeans is very much the same right now. So it's a great point. I'm glad you raised it. I'm sorry we didn't have more soybean examples in there. But I know most of your base out here isn't soybeans, is it?
Yeah.
It's more on planted acres. So what is the status? Again, President Trump mentioned he has a meeting with President Xi. He's going to go over there later this year. They have another meeting this week. Of course, last week we had some hopes, and what did they talk about? TikTok. Somebody said it. Yeah. It's like, come on, TikTok, seriously? Although, who loves TikTok? I don't. Thank you. One in the back. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. It's amazing what you can get out there and see. And I think we all kind of like the idea of, we don't want that owned by a Chinese state enterprise. Better if we diversify that some. So that's all fine. But where the rubber meets the road, from my perspective, is what are we going to get in terms of access? When are they going to announce and actually follow through with a major purchase? Do they have the room in the Chinese stocks? Absolutely. Can they import it? Yes. We just got to get it to that point. And so the honest answer to your question is, we're hopeful, but we're not there yet. So we got to keep pressing. And I really like this, the current president of the American Soybean Association. I don't know if he's the current president, but this Ragland, and he gets on TikTok and he starts making these videos, and they're meaningful. They make an impact. So that's great. And maybe we could have wiser comments on this particular topic from your own congressman. Can I introduce? It's not really my place. I'm a Texan. It's good to see you, Loren. But I'll say, when I said there are a lot of members of Congress that are up there bringing the fight to it in a strong voice, there's no strong voice in Boulder representative, not Boulder,
No.
Boulder. Representative Loren Boebert. So let me hand this to you. Y'all welcome your congressman who's serving you so well.
Been great. I haven't seen you in a while. All right. I'll be there a lot though. You coming to town?
All right.
Okay. So we are neighbors in Washington, DC. So I'm usually there just to sleep and shower, and then back on in all the other meetings they have us in. Let's see what I got to do here. I've had Celsius and coffee. I'm shaky, but it's okay. I work for the shake every day. I'm like, all right, it's working. We can carry on now. I was going to get this. Praise the Lord. Got it. Hi. It is so great to be with y'all. I don't think I was officially on your agenda, but we didn't know exactly what things were going to look like. And so great to be with you. I know that Tom was talking about some of the big, beautiful bill items that were passed for our wonderful farmers and ranchers, everyone in the agriculture industry. We got a huge chunk of the farm bill in there. Obviously, we don't have a farm bill. I don't want to promise you one because I don't think that we're going to see one soon. It's possible, but our numbers just aren't really there for anything like that right now. And we tried really hard in the last Congress to get a farm bill passed, not knowing what our majorities would look like in this Congress. And as you all know, we were unsuccessful in that. But we've had some pretty other great successes. So I have been pushing the administration very hard for CRP payments, and happy to announce that those are finally released. It was pretty immoral that it took as long as it did to get those released. We had some great news for our sugar beets, and all of our farmers doing that, where we were able to actually provide them with some of the funding that they've been looking for far too long as well. And of course, the death tax. I've always been working to permanently end that, and so we were able to get that into the big beautiful bill as well. But there are many things that I'm talking with Chairman Thompson, GT Thompson, about when it comes to our farmers and ranchers. We just did a farm tour down in southeast Colorado. Actually, most of the places I go, I bring the rain, so it ended up being a farmhouse tour. And so we were traveling down there, had our wonderful farm service agency director, Terry Sonnenberg, with us. And so it was great to have him join us, Senator Pelton. And it was a really great time. But in that too, a lot of the NRCS personnel issues were coming up. And that is something that the administration is more than happy to work with. Director Sonnenberg has sent me a list of different names and positions that could be filled, but this is part of that hiring freeze. And they said, listen, if you need somebody, we are happy to go around this freeze and do what we have to get those positions filled. Because a lot of it, these were good boots on the ground that we had representing you guys so well. And then they either weren't fully brought on or let go or just not hired altogether. And so the administration's happy to work with us to fill those positions. So especially if you have suggestions for those positions, I would love to hear about them because some of the folks who are more qualified than I do, or even the administration does. And so if you have those, let me know. As far as surface transportation, that came up and down in Los Animas as well, and talking about just the rail industry. And there's a vacancy currently on that board. Again, if you have someone who's qualified, that's willing to do the job, then let me know that as well, because the administration, they don't want someone who is not going to be ag friendly or user friendly and is just more kind of ingrained in the rail system. And they are absolutely open to suggestions. And so, it doesn't have to be someone from Colorado, but we want good people there. Otherwise, the bureaucrats are just going to fill these positions with more bureaucrats and give their reasons of why this is the reason to go that direction. But in all of this, I understand we have the tariffs. A lot of folks have come to me saying, we get it. It's tough. It's going to be tough. I think it's going to be better. President Trump obviously loves them and brags about how rich they are making our country. Even used it at my friend's memorial yesterday. And so I do think that it will benefit us at some point, but there's more announcements that are coming out from Secretary Kennedy. I know that the fertilizers and pesticides and stuff, that's an issue. They understand that that's not an overnight change. And if there's going to be changes made there, that this is a very slow roll if it gets to that point. So that's an issue that certainly comes up a lot out here. I know that y'all need that stuff, but they are trying to find a way just to have the best product that is coming from your farms. And also, we're even hearing McDonald's say, well, we want beef. We want American beef. We are going to have more beef in our burgers. And, ultimately, they'll probably have their own farm, but, however that works with us, I think we are seeing a lot of these companies that are going towards actual real food, which should benefit us here. But I want to thank you all so much for actually being the ones who feed us, provide for us, keep our food security intact. And it's only the bureaucrats that mess it up, sometimes the legislators as well. But I'm certainly here to fight for you and advocate for you, and happy to take any questions that you have.
I want to ask.
Yeah.
I didn't bring it up in my talk, and you just did with Secretary Kennedy and kind of the MAHA issues. seems to me it kind of, it's a double-edged sword, Frank. It creates some opportunities. I mean, obviously, I think everyone in this room would say, I'm all about promoting the health of and welfare of our nation, producing crops to provide them the nutrition they need and the world, exporting it to the world. But I'll say these crop protection products are so important. And so maybe just talk a little bit more about how you see that playing out. I know your mom, you're concerned about the healthy. I don't know if you'd call yourself crunchy. I don't think so.
No patchouli here. No, I mean, I certainly love the direction that Maha is going. With a lot of the seed oils, I mean, we have a lot of sunflower seed in Colorado that we're starting to produce. Corn's not great. Agriculture industry isn't what it should be. And certainly, I mean, we're seeing bumper crops that aren't bringing in what they should either. I've heard of so many bumper crops that might break even, and that certainly is the way it should be. But the Maha direction, I certainly love the concept. I try to, go a different direction every chance I can. Unless there's Takis, I'm going to go for the Takis over anything else anytime. But it's the red dyes, you just need them. But so I agree. So there's opportunities, but it's certainly there are some struggles in there. And just like I said, with all of this, the implementation that we're hearing of, nothing is going to be overnight. And maybe there's a better solution along the way, or maybe we find out that it was something else that was making everybody be sick more than anything. And, this kind of gets put on the back burner. I heard there's a big announcement today regarding just the audacious autism rates that we're having. Just 20 years ago, it was 1 in 10,000 or 12,000, and is it 1 in 10,000, and now it's 1 in 12 children have autism. And, so, I mean, we certainly have to look at what we're doing and see the cause of that. But there's supposed to be an announcement today with the president and Secretary Kennedy. But I think as long as we keep these communications going and the administration is hearing from you all, hearing from the folks who are actually producing this, then that's how we're going to keep it on the right direction. In all of this, water is always a top priority. Working to keep Colorado water here and not Nebraska. Still trying that one. But we're going to the Bonnie Dam later. We're working on all sorts of different infrastructure projects there. Want to make sure you're able to recharge your groundwater, keep the aquifers great and sustainable, and also prevent Western Colorado from taking your water. I mean, certainly we have a lot that flows east as well, but I mean, that's happened before, right? I was in the San Luis Valley fighting Douglas County to keep their water, and and vice versa. We have 90% of the water in Western Colorado and 90% of the population here out east. East of the divide. So, I mean, that's always an issue that's going to be a priority for each and every one of us. And so working on these water storage projects is huge as well. And communicating with our friends in Nebraska about the Perkins Canal and that whole agreement, that share, we've got to be able to keep our lands fruitful and producing, and it takes water to do that. So in all of these things, we're working interchangeably to try to prioritize it. Yeah.
This may be out of your preview, but what about the NIST project? Wade Reservoir, trying to build one for Fort Collins, that whole deal that they've been studying for 15 years.
Yes. So I haven't seen any funding go there. So that's actually an issue that's on our calendar when we're going back in that area. But that's something that one of my Eaton staffers has been working on more than I have. And I mean, certainly we want the storage, but we don't want to take it from anybody else. I know Severance is fighting Greeley and all of that with their water projects as well. But that project's on my calendar for November to go and discuss. And so I'm happy to give you any updates or anything that we have on it.
It just bumps me out because a flood of 13 would have filled that 170,000 acre storage.
Yeah. We have a lot of storage that could have been filled, should have been filled, and even storage that should have been built already. I mean, we were working even in Northwest Colorado in Rangeley on the Wolf Creek Reservoir for, gosh, almost 15 years. And, we just got the funding. I approved funding 3 years ago, I believe, and got $5 million for funding there. They just received it about a month ago. So, yeah.
Chimney Rock, are they gonna be able to fill that with the uranium they found? What's going on with that one?
No, but I can look it up for you. So, but yeah, in all of this, we're trying to move faster than the speed of government, and then also slow down some other stuff. I mean, there's things I'm trying to get in the way of too. Again, talking more southeast, we have the NITSE project and all those transmission lines where they're trying to use eminent domain to take the land there. And so some projects I'm trying to speed up for you, mainly so you could get what you deserve. Others I'm trying to prevent entirely.
Well, we had covered a lot of ground, and you guys, I spoke just about the sacrifices that you guys, as representatives, Congress make of your time, and you're giving your talent over to this great congressional district. And I want to say how impressed I am and how grateful I am for your service in U.S. Congress in protecting and promoting. I know you just flew in from Arizona, I think, which was in the big picture was a great celebration of our First Amendment rights to petition our government, to make our voice known. And that's what this is about today. So y'all help me in joining. I know the Congresswoman has a hard 10:30 stop. She wants to mingle with y'all a little bit. Maybe we can take a picture or something like that. But y'all help me in thanking her for her service.
Thank you all.
Yeah. And y'all, that's it. We covered the ground.